Okay, Rabbi Sai, we are continuing the Mishnah at the very beginning of Masechet Sanhedrin. We just opened up yesterday until the two dots on the first Y line, just to learn that when it comes to all different cases of financial law, when you want to litigate those cases, you need a beit-din of 3 judges. Okay? So now we continue with all different other kinds of judicial issues. Smicha zekenim varifas egla arufa bishlosha divrei Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon says that when it comes to community leaders being involved in these communal ceremonies, one is called smicha zekenim, when an entire community commits an offense against halacha in error. So they have to bring what's called a par helam davar. They have to bring a special sacrifice to atone for having not known the proper halacha. The leaders of that community have to place their hands upon the animal and do smicha before that animal is brought. The number of judges or leaders, rabbinic leaders that have to be present to press their hands down is 3. Egla arufa, we're very familiar with that halacha. When a corpse is found outside a city, the elders of the city do a procedure called the egla arufa, with a calf whose neck is broken. That requires 3. That's according to Reb Shimon. But Reb Yehuda Omer b'chamisha, he says 5, and the Gemara will explain the source of their disagreement. Chalitza v'hami'unin bishlosha, when a woman wishes to do chalitza in order to break the zika between herself and the yavam, so then that requires a beit-din of 3. Rashi says this is derived in the Gemara in Yavamis. And miyun, which is a form of marriage annulment for a minor that is only rabbinically married because she has no father to marry her off, but Chazal allowed her to get married through her mother and brothers. If she wishes to annul the marriage, she needs to go to a beit-din of 3. Okay, neta revai umaiser sheni she'en dom of yeduin b'shlosha. When you want to make a valuation of produce, and now produce, which is neta revai or maiser sheni, is a type of tithe that is supposed to be brought up to Yerushalayim and consumed there. But you also have the option of transferring its value onto cash. When the valuation can be easily made because the produce is easily valuated, so you don't need a beit-din. But let's say the produce is lost, or let's say the produce rots, and so we can't make a proper valuation by ourselves, then you need the involvement of a beit-din, and that beit-din has to be of 3. Ha'hekdeshos b'shlosha, when a person wants to purchase an item from hekdesh, it needs to be evaluated by 3 judges to determine its correct value. Ha'erchen ha'metaltalin b'shlosha, anytime a person wishes to redeem something that was made erchin, that was declared to be for the temple using the erchin process, which we'll discuss later, requires, again, 3 judges, if it's chattel. But Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Echad Mehen Kohen, Rabbi Yehuda says that one of those 3 must be a Kohen, because the Torah says that it says Ke'erkecha HaKohen, because the valuation has to involve a Kohen, it says in the Pasuk. The Hakarkos Tisha v'Kohen. And when it comes to real estate, you need a total of 10, 9 plus 1 Kohen at least. Va'adam kayotze bahen. And furthermore, when a human being is made hektish, if you want to redeem that person from hektish, you also need the same 10, with one of them being a Kohen. Dine, the Gemara, this is all very vague, we acknowledge, and the Gemara will clarify these further. Dine nefashos be'esrim l'shlosha. Any capital case where the stakes are the death penalty requires a beit-din of 23. Haroveya v'hanirva be'esrim l'shlosha. An animal which is involved in a bestiality act, where the human that's involved in the act is put to death, the animal is also put to death. But in order to put the animal to death, you also need a beit-din of 23. Shene'amar v'harakto es ha'isha v'es ha'behema v'omar v'es ha'behema taharogu. And I know this because Scripture connects the death penalty of the human with the death penalty of the animal. And so therefore, since the human requires a beit-din of 23, so too does the animal. Shor haniskal be'esrim u'shlosha shenemar hashor yisakel v'gam ba'olav. You must. If a shor is being put to death for having killed a person by goring, the Torah says that shore shall be stoned to death. That too requires 23 judges. And the Torah, and how do I know this? Because the Torah says the shore shall be stoned and the owner shall die. Now, we know from Torah Sheba'al Peh that the owner does not get put to death in that situation. If my ox goes and kills somebody, they don't execute me. But the words V'gambol of you must means that I have to pay for the value of that life that was taken. Why then does it write it in this way? To connect the death of the shore to the way that you would execute any human criminal. Just like a human criminal would be executed by a beit-din of 23, so too does the shore have to be executed with a beit-din of 23. And kemisas ba'olim kach misas hashor, and that tells me that just like a person has to be executed with 23, so too does a shore. Now, this is a big chiddush. Haze'eh v'ha'ari v'ha'do v'ha'namer v'ha'bardalas v'ha'nachash misasin be'esrim v'shlosha. The Mishnah commences and says that this halacha about stoning a shore is not just for a shore. It applies to wild animals as well. If a wild animal were to go and kill a human being, that animal would have to be put to death, but in a Sanhedrin of 23 judges. So this includes a wolf, a lion, a bear, a leopard, a bardalas, Rashi says, is a skunk, but it sounds like from Tosfos that it's a different kind of wild animal, a serpent. Anytime you're going to put them to death, now normally we would say if a person's got a wild dog that kills someone, you just shoot the animal, you put it down, right? But no, according to this shita, you need a Sanhedrin of 23 judges in order to execute the animal, which is very surprising. And that's what causes Rabbi Eliezer to dissent, and he says, no, Omer, kolak koidem lohar ganzacha. He says, to the contrary, whoever can kill that animal first is doing a good thing. Gesundere hate. Put that animal down as soon as possible. Rabbi Akiva Omer Misasan Besim Shlosh. Rabbi Akiva seems to be just saying the same thing as the Tanakama. The Gemara will have to clarify why he's coming to add that it's based on 23. Questions? Any comments? Okay, let us go weiter. Aim done in lois hashevet v'lois navi hasheker v'lois kohen gadol ela al pi beit-din shel shivin ve'echad. Now there are certain kinds of capital cases that rise to an even higher level, that requires a Sanhedrin of 71. And Rashi says that this is the great Sanhedrin that convenes in the Lishkas HaGazis in the temple. And this is when you want to judge the majority of a tribe that is accused of having worshipped idolatry or some other capital sin, a false prophet where the penalty is death, or a Kohen Gadol who is being judged presumably for a capital offense. That all requires a Sanhedrin of 71. Furthermore, that grand judiciary, the Supreme Court, if you will, also has to authorize going out to war. And the reason why it's called the Milchemes Rishus is because that's the general term for any war that's not involved in kibush aretz, in the conquest of Eretz Yisrael. So anything that's post Yehoshua generically is known as Milchemes Rishus. Ein mosif and al ha'ir v'al ha'azaros ela al pi beit-din shel shivim ve'echad. If you want to annex the city of Yerushalayim, or you want to enlarge it, or if you want to annex the temple by enlarging the temple dimensions, that also has to be done because it changes the status of the land, has to be done by a 71 Sanhedrin. Ein osin Sanhedrios l'shvatam el pi beit-din shel shivim ve'echad. Let's say a region in Eretz Yisrael wants its own Sanhedrin. It wants a Sanhedrin of 23 judges. They have to appeal to the Supreme Court in Yerushalayim, and only through their endorsement of it can that be set up.
Did it ever happen?
I'm sure it happened all the time. There were regional Sanhedrins.
For 71?
No. For 23. When you want to set up a Sanhedrin of
23. Okay, you got to go to the 71.
You got to go to the 71 in Yerushalayim to get authorization.
Misunderstood.
Ein osin ir hanidachas ela al pi beit-din shel shivim ve'echad. To deem a city to be an ir hanidachas where the majority of the city is idolatrous, and therefore you burn it and all its contents to the ground, that requires the judgment of the Grand Sanhedrin.
And we know that never happened. That's famous.
Right, there's one Gemara that says that it never happened, I believe, right? Ein osin ir hanidachas bisfar v'lo shalosh aval osin echas o shtayim. As far as what cities may be made into an ir hanidachas, so the Mishnah says you can never make a border city into an ir hanidachas. We'll learn why. And furthermore, you can't make 3 cities at the same time in ir hanidachas, but only 1 or 2 cities. What that means, we'll see also. Sanhedrin Gedol Ha'isa Shel Shivim Ve'echad Uktana Shel Esrim U'Shlosha. The great Sanhedrin, or the supreme Sanhedrin, was of 71, and any minor Sanhedrin, they were regional, was of 23. Minayin L'Gedola Shehi Shel Shivim Ve'echad. And how do you know that the grand one is 71? Shenamar Esfali Shivim Ish Mezikne Yisrael Moshe Al Gabeyan. Because in Parshas Baloscha, remember that whole story where Moshe says, God, I can't do this on my own, I need some help. God says, okay, gather 70 elders, and they will help you. So 70 plus Moshe is 71. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Shivim. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. He says it's not 71, but rather 70. Uminayin leketana shehi shel esrim u'shlosha. But where do you get this number of 23 for a minor Sanhedrin? Shenamar v'shaftu ha'eda v'hitzilu ha'eda. And the answer is, I believe it's in this week's Parsha, where the Torah talks about the Ir Miklat, and it says that the congregation shall judge, which means condemn, and the congregation shall save, which means to exonerate. Now, when we have these 2 verbs used in the context of a court, and it calls the court an Eda, it says, Eda shofetes ve'eda matos. We learn from here that you need a quorum of an Eda to be able to exonerate, and within that very same court, you need a quorum of an Eda to condemn. So if you have 2 Edas, and each Eda is 10 people, as we'll see in a minute, so that teaches me that the minimum size of a court to judge on capital cases is 20. So Harei Kan Esrin. Uminayin le'eda shehi asar. Where do you know that the word Eda means a quorum of 10? Shenamar, and by the way, this is also the source of learning about a minyan, of meaning 10. Ad masai le'eda hara hazos, yatsu Yoshua v'kalev. Right? The God says, how much longer must I endure this evil Eda? So we see that the word Eda means 10 because there were 10 evil spies to the exclusion of Yeshua and Kalev. Okay? Uminayin lahavi ot shlosha. So that only tells me you need 20 judges. Where do you get 23? So mimash m'shenemar lo sihiya achrei rabim l'ros, shomea ani she'eheye imohem l'tova. So listen to this logic. There are 2 psukim in the Torah that says that you side with the majority. The first pasuk says, do not go after a simple majority when you want to convict. What that means is that if you only have a majority of 1, you cannot convict a criminal with only a majority of 1. You need more than a majority of 1. Okay? Now, what that implies is that if you wish to exonerate, all you need is a majority of 1. So therefore, we already see from this first pasuk that 1 person would be sufficient. If you had a hung jury of 10 versus 10, you would need to add 1 person on the side of merit in order for that person to be found innocent. Imkain lama nemar acharei rabim lahatos. So then why do you need a second pasuk that says go after a simple majority to exonerate? That pasuk seems to be extraneous, and therefore it's coming to tell me an additional halacha, which is loka hatayascha l'tova hatayascha l'ra hatayascha l'tova al pi echad hatayascha l'ra al pi shnayim. It's coming to teach you that how much of a majority do you need in order to convict? You need more than 1, meaning 2. So that's what the second pasuk is coming to tell you. So whenever you have a hung jury of 10 versus 10, half the jury, or half the judge, half the court wants to condemn and half the court wants to exonerate, you would need a majority of 2 in addition to an Eda here and an Eda there in order to convict, which means you would need 22 as a minimum whenever you have an Eda on either side. You would have to have 12 condemning and 10 finding not guilty. However, so that only tells me 22 judges. However, ve'ein based in shakel, we're never allowed to have an even number of judges on a beit-din. Why is that? Because then you'd have a hung jury. Because if we could allow 22, there could be a potential of 11 versus 11, and we never allow that. There has to be at least there always has to be an odd number to allow for, in the case of exoneration, a majority. So therefore, Mosifan Aleim Od Echad Arei Kan Esrim Ushlosha. And therefore, we need to add one to get to a total of 23. So let's go through the steps one more time. You need to have the possibility of an even balance of 10 versus 10. So that teaches me, based on the psukim, that there have to be at least 20. There has to be the possibility, when you have 10 on one side and 10 on the other side, of having a majority that find not guilty. So therefore, that tells me you need to have 21. But you also need to have a majority of 2 when you have an Ada here and an Ada there that find guilty, which means you have to have a minimum of 22. But since you can't have an even number on any beit-din, you therefore have to add 1 to get a total of 23. So the Gemara now says, V'kama yehei ba'ir, the Mishnah writers continues, V'kama yehei ba'ir tehi ru'uy l'Sanhedrin. Now a different question. What is the minimum amount of residents of a region in order for them to be able to demand to have their own Sanhedrin? And the answer is Me'ah ve'esrim. All you need is a village of 120 occupants in order for them to be able to demand their own Sanhedrin of 23, which is pretty surprising. That's like a top-heavy government, what kind of government is going to have 23 judges to serve 120 people? That sounds a little bit disproportionate. But that's what causes Rabbi Nechemia to disagree. He says, Rabbi Nechemia Omer Masayim Ushloshim Keneged Sarei Asaros. He says, no, the Torah has a precedent in Parshas Yisro that when Yisro advised Moshe to set up a staggered judiciary of, a hierarchical judiciary, he said the lowest kind of judge will be in charge of 10 people. So the minimal ratio that you need is 1 to 10 for judges. And so therefore, if you're going to have a beit-din of 23 judges, you need to have at least 230 residents. Okay, let's take a look now at the Gemara. Atu gezelos v'chavolos lav dinei momenos ninhu question mark. Going back to the very beginning of our Mishnah. Our Mishnah started by saying dinei momenos b'shlosha. Financial law requires a beit-din of 3. But then it said gezelos v'chavolos b'shlosha. Then it said that laws of theft, or really stealing, and laws of damage require a beit-din of 3. So the Gemara said, I don't understand. You said all financial law. That covers stealing and damages. So why do you have to say that explicitly? So Amar Rabbi Avahu, Mahen Katani. Mahen Dinei Momenos, Gazelos V'chavalos, Abal Hodos V'halvos Lo. So the way you read the Mishnah is, financial law requires 3. And you want to know what the definition of financial law is. Stealing and damages. Now, stealing, what do we mean by stealing? If a person was entrusted for an object for safekeeping, he was a shomer, and then when the owner says, may I have the item back, he denies having it. Either he says, it got stolen, or I lost it, or I don't know what you're talking about. So, and then he's discovered to be a liar. So the litigation for that case requires a beit-din of 3. Damages is if I cause injury to another person, either through my property or my person. That also requires it, but that's also financial law. So what the Mishnah is basically saying, when I said financial law, I was talking about stealing and damages, but I wasn't talking about the law of loans. If a person brings forth witnesses that I loaned a guy money and he's denying the loan, either because I have witnesses who saw him admit to the loan, or I have witnesses who actually saw the loan itself, in that situation, the halacha of 3 judges is not true. Now, why is that? We have to clarify that in a moment, but let's just finish our understanding of how to read the text of the Mishnah. Utzrichen. Why did the Mishnah have to write it that way? I'll tell you why. The itana dinei momenos hava amina da afilo hodaos v'halvaos tana gezelos v'chavalos. If the Mishnah would have just said financial law requires 3, I might have thought all financial law, including the laws of loans, litigation on loans. And therefore it has to specify, no, we're only talking about stealing and damages. V'itana gezelos v'chavalos v'lokatani dinei momenos hava amina hu adin da afilo hodos v'halvos v'hayde katani gezelos v'chavalos mishum de'ikr gimel de'ksivi b'gezelos v'chavalos ksivi. And if the Mishnah would have only said laws of stealing and laws of damages requires 3, I might have thought that those are 2 examples of all financial law, including the law of loans, litigating loans. So then why did the Mishnah choose just to use these two examples? Not because they're the only two examples, but rather because the pasuk in the Torah that talks about 3 judges is in the context of stealing and damages. Now, how do I know that? Gezelos tichsiv v'nikrav balabayis el ha-Elohim. Because in Parshas Mishpatim, it talks about the idea of a person approaching the judges. Judges means a minimum of 2, right? And because you can't have an even jury, that implies a beit-din of 3. Now, what is the context of that pasuk? V'nikrav balabayis el ha-Elohim im lo shalach yado b'mlechas re'ehu. A person who was a shomer has to swear that he did not keep the item for himself. So that's what the pasuk is talking about. And by extension, that pasuk is also talking about damages, because if the Torah tells me that I have to litigate stealing with 3 judges, it follows that if I steal your property, I have to litigate with 3. Then if I steal a portion of your body by injuring you, then I also have to litigate with 3. So I might have thought that the reason, if the Torah would have simply said the laws of damages and stealing requires 3, that might have been an example for all laws of damages, including litigating loans. And therefore, Tana Mahin Dine Mamanis Gazelos V'Chavalos V'Alhodos V'Halvos Lo. And therefore, the Mishnah says explicitly, financial law, and by that I only mean stealing and damages, that requires 3. But other cases of financial law does not require 3. So the Gemara says, what are you talking about? Ulamai. So what are the ramifications? That litigating loans does not require 3? If that's what you mean, the Ha'amar Rabbi Avos Shnaim Shadanu Dinei Mamanas Livrei Kolei Dineim Din. Rabbi Avos says across the board, any financial law that is not litigated in front of 3 judges is not a valid litigation. So how can you tell me that loans do not have to be litigated in front of 3 judges? So Ella Delo Ba'inan Mumchen. So the Gemara's answer is, everyone agrees that when you litigate any case of financial law, including loans, it has to be litigated in front of 3 dayanim. But what is the nature of the dayanim? The nature of the dayanim is that when it comes to stealing and damages, they have to be expert judges. But when they are litigating loans, they can be done in front of 3 non-experts. That's what we mean in the Mishnah, that dafka only chavalos and gezelos require 3 mumchen, 3 expert judges. But loans can be litigated, they have to have 3, true, but they can be non-experts. So the Gemara says, but wait a minute, you have to clarify this. My kasava. But how do you hold? I kasavra erev parshas ksiv kan li boy noimi mumchen, v'ikasavra any erev parshas ksiv kan shlo shalamali. So the Gemara says like this, what is my source for knowing that I need 3 judges for financial law? It's based on that pasuk in Parshas Mishpatim. It says in Parshas Mishpatim that it says the word Elohim 3 times in the context of different kinds of laws. But those laws that are written over there have to do with a shomer who is denying having an object that was entrusted to him for safekeeping. Now, there is a Gemara in Bava Kama that we saw a long time ago that says, Eruv Parshios Ksiv Kan, that even though at face value those psukim are only talking about a shomer, there are certain parts of that law, of those laws in the psukim, that are actually not addressing a shomer, but are addressing a borrower of money, a person who takes out a loan. Now, how Chazal knew this is a bit of a mystery, but it's based on the Mosaic tradition of Torah Shebaal Peh, that when the Torah says the law of Asher Yomar Kihu Zeh, which is the source text for knowing that if a person is a moda b'miktsas, if he makes a partial admission to a loan, he has to take a shvua. That is based in the psukim that are talking about a shomer. How can the psukim that are talking about a shomer teach me the law of when you take out a loan and you make a partial admission? So the Gemara in Bava Kama says, Erev Parshos Ksiv Kan. We scrambled an egg, and we put together the laws of loans and the laws of a shomer, and mixed the verbiage together, and that was part of the obfuscation of the Torah that relies on Chazal to pull apart the pieces and tell me which laws relate to a shomer and which laws relate to a lova, a borrower. Now, if you subscribe to that, which seems to be the consensus of Chazal, then just like the law of a shomer who's stealing should require 3 judges and 3 expert judges, because it says, Ad ha-Elohim yavod davar shneim, they have to come to the expert judges. Well, then those very same expert judges should have to preside over the laws of loans, because the laws of loans are intermingled with the laws of a shomer. And if you don't subscribe to that idea of this intermingling of law in the text of the Torah, and that the Torah is not addressing the law of a borrower at all, then where do you get the idea that in cases of loans you need 3 judges? So wake up your mind. You either agree that the laws of a lova, of a borrower, are intermingled with the laws of a shomer, which is why you need 3 judges. But if that's the case, then why shouldn't you need 3 expert judges? So the Gemara's answer is like this. So, la'olam ksavra erev parshos kasav kan, uvedinu deliboy nomi mumchen. Really, everyone agrees that the laws of loans and the laws of a shomer are intermingled in the text in Parshas Mishpatim. And really, midioraisa, you need 3 expert judges, both for loans and for stealing. But the rabbis created a special leniency, which they have the jurisdiction to do, that for laws of loans, you don't need experts. You don't need expert judges. Why? Because of Rabbi Chanina. The Amar Rabbi Chanina, Devar Torah, Echa dinei mamanis, Vecha dinei nefashos, bedrisha v'chakira. Rabbi Chanina says that both for all financial law and for all capital cases, you need judges who are experts so that they can do what's called drisha v'chakira. They can do cross-examination of the witnesses, cross-examination of the litigants. You need to be able to have judges who are professionals who know how to draw out the truth from the parties. However, and how do I know this? Because the Torah says there shall be one law for all court cases. And just like, therefore, you need to have experts in one area, you need to have experts in all areas of adjudication. But in one instance, they said that you don't need to have expert judges. And that is in the case of money lending, a case when you want to litigate a loan. And why, even though technically the Torah requires you to have it, the rabbis were lenient and said you don't need it. Why is that? Because if a person knows that if I lend money and I'm going to have to litigate in order to get my money back, and I'm going to have to hire a group of professionals, that's too much of a hassle. I'm not prepared to do that. So the rabbi said in order to incentivize people to lend money, they wanted to make it as easy as possible to get your money back even when the borrower denies it. And they therefore said, don't worry, even if you have to litigate this, you can do it easily by getting 3 non-professionals. This is where we'll hold it for today. Yes? May we say Kaddish first? Is that okay?